Hey nerds, this is Coffee and Games episode 12, I believe. I will correct myself if I'm wrong when I do the intro for this afterwards. And we are here with, I feel like I pronounce this wrong every time, and I feel like I pronounce it differently every time, but it's Laranity?
It is. You actually
Okay,
nailed it. Everyone messes it up, but you did it correctly. I'm
perfect.
impressed.
And so if you would like to tell everyone where they can find you, where you stream, where most of your content is, and what time you stream.
Sure, I stream over on twitch.tv/Laranity. Originally, I used to be like a YouTuber only. I only made the move to Twitch like this year. So I'm also on youtube.com/Laranity, and I kind of stream around like EU evenings. So for people over on NA, I usually stream during like your morning/afternoons, kind of. Um, it's a fun time slot though. There's a lot of fun people in there. I'm kind of like lots of people. They wake up and then they watch my stream, and then like when I end, they can move over to like Mugluck. It's a cool slot.
Absolutely. That's actually kind of what I was thinking about doing too. Everyone's like, why do you stop at this time? And I'm like, well, it's not necessarily for you guys to watch Muck. It's because I watch Muck pretty much every day and I don't want to
Yeah,
miss anything.
I I'm always like watching the NA streamers. I feel like I'm a part of the NA community because
Right?
that's when I'm watching streams. Like when
Of
I'm done
course.
watching all the cool NA people.
And so when you were started doing content for YouTube, was it Guild Wars 2? Was it Guild Wars? Or was there something else that you were interested beforehand and you just kind of moved in that direction?
It actually was. It was like when I was like a kid, I was making these really silly YouTube videos about like pretty much anything, right? Like Pokemon and what it made zero sense. And then when Guild Wars 2 was coming out, I was really excited. I started playing the Guild Wars franchise like all the way back in 2006 or something. So I was like a huge like Guild Wars fan. And then Guild Wars 2 was gonna come out, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna play this, and I'm gonna be a Guild Wars 2 YouTuber. Um, but there were already a lot of people doing that, so
Mhm.
I decided I wanted to be a Dutch Guild Wars 2 YouTuber. So I was like the only person who was making Dutch videos. Um, and I really enjoyed that. But eventually I realized that the Dutch community was pretty small. And most people who speak Dutch speak English anyway, so I swapped over. I was always kind of a casual YouTuber though. Like I was always like just making videos about stuff I liked or if something funny had happened.
Mhm.
And then back in 2017, I made a video. It was called "A Music Guild Tries to Raids," and that's sort of where it started, I would say. That's like my first video that's got like a significant amount of views, and I was like, hell yeah, I found something. So I made like part two, part three, part four, and I just kind of kept rolling with that. And I think that's so I was always like casually doing videos, but I only really got into it big time in like 2017. And then last year I was like, hey, it'd be cool to stream. So now I'm on Twitch as well. It's been really fun. There's so many nice people in this community. I've
Oh
been
yeah,
having such a
absolutely.
blast.
So how do you like streaming on Twitch versus creating content? Is it, do you prefer it more? Do you like the actual media? Like how do you feel about the way people can subscribe, things like that?
That is a really interesting question. The thing I always liked about YouTube is that I could really like optimize my videos sort
Hmm.
of. Like every second I was always thinking about like how do I make these 10 minutes as entertaining as possible. And I would have like text, and I would like animate the text to make it like even more fun and try to like enhance it a bit.
Hmm.
And the one thing I was missing is I didn't really have that personal connection. Because these videos I was making, they were like funny moments compilations, pretty
Sure.
much. I still do them sometimes, but they weren't really videos focused on me.
Hmm.
They were more like videos focused on like my friends group and all the funny things we would get up to and stuff. But I always thought it would be really cool to like sort of like form a community and really get to talk to these people. Because the only contact I had with people was like YouTube comments, or sometimes someone in game would be like, "Hey, I've seen your videos," and I would be like, "Wow, that's so cool." But now I get to actually like talk with people. And it's also been like really nice to just meet the other people in the space, right? Because I was always like watching these like big content creators that were having like these awesome views, and I was always like, oh, content.
Hmm.
And now I've like talked to like all of them. It's so wild. I once just nerded out because I was in like a voice call with like 3 people I watched on YouTube for like the past 5 years. So it's been really cool to like not just make these like really catered videos, but also just make it a bit more personal. But it was also kind of bad. When I first started, I was really scared about seeming boring. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Because,
yeah, I can see that.
yeah, it's like on YouTube, you can really like make sure it's never boring. But in a stream, sometimes there will just be nothing interesting happening. And I would always feel like, oh no, they must all be getting so bored.
Especially if it's something that you're excited about, like
Yeah,
farming something, and you're like, how can these people be watching me farming like
exactly.
nodes for 2 hours? No, I absolutely hear you. And on the front of being able to talk to people that you've kind of watched grow as well, and then you're like, they're like celebrities to me.
Exactly.
Like when,
It's so cool.
yeah, and when people are like, yeah, I'll be on the podcast, I look at them like, are you serious? Like, you've seen it, right? You know that like things are just going right.
I know.
So I totally hear you. And this music guild, so has it always
Right.
been a thing? Like, how did this come about?
That is pretty cool story as well. You're asking all the fun questions. I like answering these. No, but I was playing Guild 2, and like I'm like a huge fan of this franchise, right? But at some point, part of the appeal of like MMORPGs to me is just like the fact that I can be social and I can make like friends in these games and stuff. So one of the things that I like to do was just hanging out in the cities. So like not even doing any content, just like standing in the yard talking to people. And one day I ran into some people and they were like playing music on these in-game instruments. ArenaNet added these instruments fairly early in the game's life. And basically all the whole idea is like you press like your skill buttons, like the buttons on your keyboard, and then it becomes like notes, right?
Yep.
Now it's a bit like limited. You can't do like if you have like a piano, you have like the white keys and black keys. You can't play the black keys, so it becomes a bit complicated. It's fairly limited. But we discovered you could like play music together with other people, and it would like you could like play a duet or like a band song or something. So this sort of community started to form in Divinity's Reach, where people would like get together and play songs. And eventually, like some of us made a guild, and that's just been a total blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we just like once a year we do a big concert and we just hang out, we play together. It's really nice. I feel like probably like over half of my playtime is just like playing music with nice people.
So do you have a specific type of music that you guys focus on, like, especially when you do this event every year?
Not really. Like our guild is pretty big. I think we're something like 400 members right now.
Wow.
So we have people like metal, we have people just like doing game soundtracks, we have people like to do the emotional piano songs, you know. Sometimes we'll have a theme though. Like this year we were playing at a Halloween event, so we had like all kinds of spooky songs, and we were doing like spooky, scary skeletons and stuff, you know.
Awesome.
It's really fun, and like it's such an experience for people. Most people, they've never really seen something like a
Right.
band playing music inside of an MMO. So you're just like playing, and there's always like people showing up, and they're like being mind blown that people are playing this song. It's really fun. It's such a blast. So we've existed for like almost 7 years, and we're still going strong. Still
That's
playing
awesome.
music.
Have you
Yeah,
ever had
it's
people stop and watch you and like try to like tip you gold or something?
yes.
That's awesome.
I know someone, and she has like 3 legendaries, and she pretty much got all of that just by people tipping her. She would
That's so
just like
great.
play all the time and just like save it up. That's how I made gold for a while as well. There's this year where I want to say bored of the game, but you know, I've played this game a lot. At some point,
Right.
you're kind of like, you know, there's periods where you're less interested.
Oh yeah,
But I never
absolutely.
stopped playing music, so you know, sometimes music would be my primary source of gold every day.
And so do you
It's
have
cool.
a specific instrument that you like to play in game that's your absolute favorite above everything else?
Yes. The instruments are actually like fairly different. There are some of those which they released earlier, and they're a lot more like laggy and buggy, and they're not as smooth as the other ones. At some point, they released the harp, and the harp is like when music became real, because the harp it's like it's not as laggy. It can do like it can do like chords, so you can like combine the notes together to make chords. It has like 3 different octaves you can go in, so you can do a lot with the harp.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's like the bass, which is really good to play background bass notes. So there's a lot of variety, but if you're looking to get into it, definitely get the harp first. The harp is like absolutely the best.
I think someone gifted me the bell first.
Heck yeah, you should
And
try it.
I have the person sent in-game mail that this is gonna sound so silly, but that was the exact numbers of notes to play the Shire song for Lord of the Rings Fellowship, and I was so excited. I was just hitting all of them. Like, I had no idea what the notes were supposed to be. I'm just like, okay, 1 1 3 1. Like, it was fun. So do you play? Do you actually play music, IRL?
I do.
You do.
My piano is right over here. But that's kind of the cool thing, because which we were just talking about, those just like numbers, right? It's really accessible.
It is.
Most people, they just start and it's like, hey, you want to play the song from Lord of the Rings, or hey, you want to play I don't know, like the Star Wars song or something. And you just look it up, you just find like the numbers, and you just press those buttons in the right order, and you got your song pretty much.
Right.
So I've been playing like piano for a long time, but most people in our guild actually have never played like any instruments before. And that's the cool thing about it, right? Like, I like to play piano, but I was always playing alone. I wasn't social enough to go outside and find someone to play like a band song with. But I can just get on Guild Wars and I can be playing a band song in like 5 minutes, you know?
That's amazing. And it's cool
Yeah.
that with them not knowing as well, the idea that you were talking about it being so accessible, and then there are a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm going to escape from everything I just did today and play this game. And so it's like, I'm not a musician in real life, but I can be now. That's amazing.
Exactly.
I love that. Oh, that's so cool. And is there something that, what was the event that you said? Do people know about that every year? Is it the same day?
It's not the same day, but it's always like in summer. It's like our anniversary event. So when our guild had existed for like a year, we were like, we should do a big concert. And we've just done that like every year since then. Usually there's a post on the forums, there's a post on Reddit. The bad thing though is the way Guild Wars 2 works is each like map can only have like up to a certain amount of people inside.
Oh yeah.
So it always fills up really quickly, and then people can't join anymore. 1 year we actually had some ArenaNet developers, and they wanted to like come and listen. So we were like super honored. We were like, wow, ArenaNet is gonna come and listen.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the overflow was full and they couldn't join us.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
It was really unfortunate. We did like a tiny concert for them like afterwards. But it's always a big success.
Just that they wanted to be involved is so cool. Do you have a favorite area that has amazing music in game that you love above everything else, or is there just your favorite track, since you guys are into music so much, that you like?
You mean just like from the game soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
I have this huge love for the soundtrack that is in a particular area of Heart of Thorns. It's called Auric Basin. And like the whole idea of Auric Basin is that there's this big like golden city. I don't want to spoil you the story of the game.
Okay.
But there's a lot of throwbacks. So I was I sort of grew up with this franchise. I played like Guild Wars 1 when I was first released. And they have a lot of music which is sort of like inspired by the music from back then in like Guild Wars 1. So there's like a sort of a remixed version of like one of these original songs. That just gives me goosebumps every time. I absolutely love like all the music in this game. There's so many talented composers working on it. But it gives me the ultimate like nostalgia, you know? It's good. This game has like amazing music, and I keep being blown away by it every single time.
And it's actually funny, you just kind of answered what my next question was going to be, because I saw you playing Guild Wars the other day. So what is that? Was that on a different character? Were you doing like a different playthrough? Like, what was the agenda for you doing it a year later? Sorry, my dog's kind of antsy right now.
So, I've been streaming Guild Wars 2, and I sort of got into that this year. And I've been having a total blast. Like, for me, Guild Wars 2 is like, it's almost like my home, right? I'm incredibly like invested in like the story and the setting and all the lore of like the franchise and stuff because I've been into it since like literally like 2006 or something.
Right.
So I have a lot of nostalgia for those earlier games, for like Guild Wars 1, right? But Guild Wars 1, there's still like people playing that game till this day, but it's not nearly as active as it used to be.
Right.
So the idea of Guild Wars 1 is that you have missions that you go through. It's almost like a linear game with these missions that you play, and at some point you've like finished the missions, and you finish like the story. So most people, when they go back to Guild Wars 1, they will play with AI players. I think T-Bot actually mentioned this on your podcast.
You did.
And so most people, it's kind of become a single player game for a lot of people.
Right.
And I've gone back to the game like over the years to get like YouTube footage or something. But at some point I was like, hey, I got all these amazing people watching on Twitch. Maybe I can convince them to play Guild Wars 1 with me. So I started like a playthrough of the whole game. So we all made like new characters and we've all been playing through the game together, which has been really exciting. I have not played the original game with like real people in like over 10 years. So it's been cool, especially with like the new expansion for Guild Wars 2 coming up. We're going to like this one big exciting continent called Canva.
Yeah.
And the reason a lot of people are excited is because we saw Canva in like Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars Factions. So soon we're gonna go back to Guild Wars Factions and we're gonna like take a look at this continent so we kind of know what's gonna happen,
Yeah. No,
It's
that's
been cool.
amazing. And I was just excited to hear about it and see it because I actually just started, I downloaded the game the other day and I was going to play that with my fiance and see how many people we could get. But I just wanted to get all of the lore. So like just everything leading up to Guild Wars 2 and try to make sense of it all and then go from Guild Wars 2 into obviously End of Dragons. But have you read any of the lore books?
I have. I am a huge lore nerd. I used to like even make like videos where we talk about the lore and the history and stuff. And that's kind of the thing. I feel like most people play Guild Wars 2. They started playing Guild Wars 2. There are some people who have been around since like the Guild Wars 1 days, but it's definitely like a minority. And for me, such a large part of my enjoyment of this game is just the fact that I recognize things. It's like, oh my gosh, this place, we've seen this like 15 years ago in this other game, or a character or something. I have all this context, and that's something I felt like I wanted to share with people. And I absolutely recommend playing through Guild Wars 1. I think the game holds up like incredibly well. The graphics actually still look quite good.
Yeah.
The game still plays really well. It's very different. Like the games are so different from each other. I always hear people say like, I like 1 more, I like 2 more. I think it's really hard to even compare them because they are so different.
Because they're completely different games.
Yeah, but especially if you're like interested in the lore and the setting and stuff.
Right.
It's amazing. There's so much like I've been having some people in my playthrough group who have not played 1 before, but they've played 2. So very often they'll be like, oh my gosh, this character was in Guild Wars 2 as well. And, they'll get this whole newfound appreciation of the lore. One thing I noticed recently, or noticed something I ran into, is there's this one raid boss in Guild Wars 2. And she's called Desmina. She's known as the Solace Horror. And that character was actually like mentioned in Guild Wars 1, like literally like 16 years ago. I love how the writers of this franchise, they're actually trying to be consistent.
Right.
So, when they're like making the Underworld in Guild Wars 2 as a raid, they'll be like, hey, we wrote some stuff about the Underworld like 16 years ago, and they'll go back and they'll look like, hey, there was this Tasmina character, we can make her a raid boss.
Right.
There's a lot of like you can just recognize stuff like from Guild Wars 1 and 2 and from 2 and 1. It's I can nerd out about this like for 6 hours, but
That's okay.
it's great.
Honestly, that's awesome because I feel the same way, and I'm not even far enough in the story to have it be relevant for a podcast yet. But one of my favorite instances talking about things that come back is obviously if you've done the Norn story and you deal with Air and Garm. And then if you 100% the Black Citadel and you go into Ritlock's quarters, you can see he has it's like a spear in the back, and you can actually interact with it. And the spear was given to him as a prize for being in a tournament, like a free-for-all tournament, where the victors were Ritlock and Garm the wolf. And I was like, wait, what? Garm? That's Air's wolf. Like, and just stuff like that is really super interesting. And it's just, I could go on about it forever too, and I haven't even played enough. So it's cool. It's cool seeing someone else who's just as excited. So you were saying that one of your first videos that you were really excited about was your music guild doing raids. So
yes,
did you always participate in raids, or was that like your legit first time as part of, or was it just like part of the music guild?
It was actually my first time. When GW2 got its first expansion, that was Heart of Thorns, they introduced raids like maybe like 3 weeks after that or something. And raids to me always seems very intimidating. You know, it's like this very difficult content. It's like the hardest stuff in the game. I think this is a problem for a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people who really like Guild Wars 2, but raids for them are just a little bit too scary.
Right.
And it's also like tricky because you know, to get into it, you kind of want to join like a training group or something. You want to like join a group where people will be okay with you making mistakes, right? You don't want to just join a group of like pros and then get carried and then everyone will yell at you if you like mess something up.
Right.
You want to do it in like a comfortable environment. But it's you know, you kind of need to go out of your way. You need to like go and join a training guild or join like the training group of one of the guilds that you're in right now. It is totally doable, but it's just sort of like you have to take the step. You know, you have to go from like, hey, I'm a Guild 2 player to like, hey, now I'm not just gonna be a player, but I'm gonna be a raider. You know, it's like, and I was too intimidated by that. I was like, I'm not good at this game. I play music. What are they expecting? I'm not like Mighty Teapot or something. Who knows? So I was content just watching. I just like watch streams on Twitch and stuff. But one day, me and my friends were bored, and we had played like music for many hours, and then we were like, "Hey, we should totally try to do a raid." It was just like 3 of us, and a raid group in Guild Wars 2 is 10. So we weren't exactly a full group, but we just decided like, "Hey, we're 3 people. Let's just go into a raid and let's just see what happens." Yeah. And we started fighting this first boss, and you know, it was kicking our ass. We were just flying left and right, but it was fun. You know, we were like starting to like learn the patterns of what it was doing and stuff. And we started to like ask other friends. Like we saw like, hey, this person has come online. I'm sure he would like to join us. So we invited more and more people until we actually got to 10.
Right.
And we're just having so much fun, just like trying this boss. We couldn't even kill it. We had just done it for 2 days without ever actually getting close to killing it. But we were just having fun, like hanging out with each other, like laughing at everyone dying. And I was recording all of this, and I was like, wow, that was pretty fun. So that became like my first music guild tries to raid video. And that's where it all started. That's where I was like, hey, we should try to be better about this and try to like kill the other bosses. And now I would definitely call myself a raider. I like raids in this game, but it took me a while to like get over that fear, you know.
And I feel like that's actually a lot of people, like you mentioned, you know, it's kind of getting over. Well, some people actually have an issue where they're nervous about asking other people. They're nervous about putting groups together, but they're also nervous joining groups because they don't have anything to link for kills, and they think that that's the only way that they can actually get into a group. And I actually saw kind of this issue with Final Fantasy XIV as well. And people would come into chat when I was streaming, and they'd be like, how do you have the confidence to do this? And I'm like, I don't have any confidence at all about doing this. I'm just going in there and being like, whatever happens. And and everyone's like, oh, how do you learn the mechanics? I'm like, I'm following that person. Like, that person seems to know where they're going. And then eventually it just, you know, like you said, it becomes natural and a lot of fun. And sometimes it is fun just like dying over and over and figuring it out. And the ways that people die is even funnier, I think. Like falling off of a platform or something that doesn't even have to do with the boss, just boop.
And then you record it and then you put it on YouTube. And
Absolutely.
That's
And so,
no, but you're 100% correct about this. I think raids are like, for me, the most fun content in the game, I absolutely adore raids, but there's definitely a bit of an issue like getting people into it, you know, and at the same, I guess it's fine if not everyone raids. You know, some people they're just not interested in like doing that's challenge.
Sure.
But I definitely think there could be a, you know, sort of a. I wish it was easier to get into. I wish like more people would realize how fun they are and would actually give them a role. But
Right.
it's difficult. It's difficult to get into.
It is, or even just other game modes. I feel like there are a lot of people that, regardless of what MMO it is, it's not even Guild Wars 2, it's just they get to a point where they're at max level and they only enjoy one thing. And then they'll be like, this game doesn't have enough content. And it's like, okay, well, have you done this? Have you done, like, regardless of if you're scared? And that was actually one of the things I was talking with Mela about, where he was like, I was a really high-end raider and I didn't do anything else. And so I burnt myself out really quick. I got bored and then I came back and realized there was so much to the game that I could do. So other than music and raiding, is there something that really stands out to you? Or is there something that you, even though you've played the game for so long, since essentially the beginning, is there something that you still haven't tried yet?
There's been a lot of things I haven't tried yet. I have not touched PvP much at all. I maybe have like 20 hours in PvP spread over like almost 9 years. PvP to me is just like too competitive.
Gotcha.
I don't know, maybe it's not
see
too
that.
competitive, but I'm just bad at it. Every time I try it, I just get like absolutely destroyed. And I'm always jealous of people who like are into it because it seems so fun, you know?
Right.
I know I'm pretty happy just in my little like race music bubble. But I definitely wanna that's definitely something I wanna like expand to. Like especially now that I've started streaming the game. So I'm like doing things like lots of times per week. PvP is definitely something which I think could be like a fun journey, you know, like hey, I'm like such a noob and I'm like trying to learn and stuff.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the nice things about Guild Wars 2 though. There's just like so much different stuff which like appeals to so many different people. I know people who never touch raids, they never touch like the whole PvE, they just do PvP all the time, right? They never touch like raids or fractals or whatever. I know people who just do World v World all day. It's cool how it appeals to so many different people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And not even at end game, but just leveling through the whole way. It's super exciting knowing that you could get on every single day and do something completely different and still get experience for it. Just be like, today I'm
Absolutely.
going to explore, today I'm going to craft. Like that's incredible. People were saying that they've crafted all the way to 80 and I was like, to me that sounds so weird coming from WoW and 14. I'm just like, wait, what? Really? You just crafted? Like that's so cool. But I would look forward to seeing a music guild does PvP video if you ever decided to do it. I'm just saying.
I've done like Music Guild tries to play World versus World. I've done 2 of those. And people really like those, so maybe we should try PvP as well.
Absolutely, it would be fun. And so people had mentioned, and we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, that you were working on some game development stuff. So,
Yes.
maybe you could shed some light on that with for us. Are you actually writing the game? Are you doing all of the background stuff with doing coding and things or putting things together? Can you give us a little taste of that?
Sure. I'm actually doing everything, which is a bit much.
Oh my gosh.
No, but I'll give some backstory to this.
Okay.
When I like graduated from high school, I was really set on like I want to make games. Like I'm so passionate about this like thing, and I want to be a part of this, and I want to like see what it's like to make a game like this. And I had made some games in high school and stuff. So I went to university for like game and media technology, which is essentially just computer science. So I was like a programmer. I didn't really learn much about like art and music and writing and game design. It's mostly like programming. And then after I was done, I did this thesis on like graphics. I did this thesis on like ray tracing. I'm sure you've seen like the whole RTX cards and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like specialized in that. I did a whole thesis on that. And when I was done, I was like, I'm gonna work at a game studio because I want to make games. So I actually managed to get a job at a game studio.
Oh wow.
I was there for like less than a week.
Oh my God,
And
what
as well,
happened?
these people were really wonderful. They were really nice. I loved the project they were working on. I was honestly having a pretty good time, but there was like one big thing. I very quickly realized that I wanted to do my own thing. And I was being a graphics programmer, so I was like working on like making sure the game ran fast, like making sure it looks pretty and stuff.
Mhm.
But I very quickly realized that I like programming, but I also like doing game design. I also like doing arts. I also like making music.
Mhm.
Um, so I realized like I could totally be working here and I'm having a fantastic time, but I want to at least try to make my own game first, you know? Because I was like realizing like, hey, if I start doing this, I'm never gonna make that dream game I've been wanting to make for like
Right.
20 years, right? I'm just gonna like settle in and then get used to it. You know, so I made a pretty drastic change and I decided to move back in with my mom. I'm actually living with my mom right now. After like 7 years of living by myself, I was like, I'm gonna move back in with my mom.
Oh wow.
And I was like, I'm just gonna make my own game. And right now I don't have to pay rent. It's really nice. So I started working on it, and it's going well.
Good.
I'm doing the programming, I'm doing the art, I'm doing all the music, I'm doing all the writing, I'm doing like everything, and I'm having such a blast doing it. Every day I'm just like excited to keep going. At a certain point though, I felt like I was going crazy
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
like this whole pandemic was happening, and I was like
Yeah.
feeling like I wasn't having a lot of social contacts. And I still had these friends I would talk with,
Oh,
but
sure.
that's when I started streaming. I was like, wow, it would be cool to like, besides this game dev thing, just like
Right.
stream this Guild Wars 2 game that I'm really passionate about.
That is literally a good way to get through
Yeah.
that, to start streaming. That's, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that
No,
is,
no, no.
that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so that's been sort of my life. I'm like 50% like Guild Wars streamer, and I'm 50% working on my game, and it's been good. It's been awesome.
So
And
are
like
you
streaming
allowed?
has been helping me out like financially a lot as well while I'm working
Oh,
on this game, right?
that's amazing. That's super inspirational to hear, actually.
Oh,
Um, so are you able to let us in on what the genre might be, or if it'll
totally.
totally? So what would be the genre?
I'm glad you would ask. I can talk about my game for another 6 hours. No, it's an it's a multiplayer RPG, which sounds like spooky and like really ambitious, and it is. But the whole idea is like I really like MMORPGs, but there are certain limitations to the MMORPG genre, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't have like one player like potentially ruin the experience for like all the other players, right?
Mhm.
It's difficult to have players actually have some sort of influence on this like MMORPG world. So basically, the whole idea of my game is to take this like RPG experience, but just make it really small scale. So you're not playing with like thousands of people. You're just playing with like a small group of friends. You're playing with like maybe four, maybe five people.
Okay.
Imagine almost like Terraria. You know how you can play Terraria with like a group of
Hmm.
friends, but instead of like this open like 2D worlds where you're like digging and stuff, it's like an RPG and it has quests and it has like monsters you can fight. And you can level up and learn skills and all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha.
And I'm really excited about it. It's a little bit like 2D Zelda, so it's like top down. You can
Oh,
like
that's
swing
so
your sword and
cool.
stuff.
So it's like an
Um,
open world RPG that has a
yeah,
lot of, yeah, like almost of like a sandbox aspect as well, it sounds like.
exactly.
That's cool. So can you tell us, is the combat going to be like Zelda-ish style, or can you let us
Kinda.
know about that too, kind of?
Yeah, you've got like your weapon which you can like swing around, and it's almost like the same as like these old like 2D Zelda games where you would do like wow wow wow. And besides that, you've also got like a skill bar, and you can unlock different skills that you can put on there.
Hmm.
I'm still like messing around with it. It's still like changing pretty much every week. But it's simplistic. It's not like, a proper full MMORPG because,
Sure.
it's I'm just one person making this. But it's like, you know how like you have like Terraria combat where you're just like swinging your swords or something like in
Yeah.
Minecraft or something. It's like simplistic combat like that.
Nice.
It doesn't have like too much depth. But it's meant as like a fun game you play with your friends when you want to like go and do a dungeon or something. It's not
Yeah.
really meant as like a super deep, very difficult game. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
It's gonna
it
be
sounds
cool.
amazing. Do you
Thank you.
know what you would want to release it on? Will it just be on PC or for the most part?
At first, it's just gonna be on Steam.
Okay.
It uses like Steam networking to like make multiplayer really easy and stuff. So there's just like your Steam accounts and your Steam friend list and that sort of stuff. Um, but if it like actually does well, I would love to like port it and get it on the Switch or something. That would be
Oh,
really
that'd be
cool.
cool.
That would be awesome. At
And
first, it's just gonna be like PC and Mac and maybe Linux, you know,
right. I feel like Linux is always left out.
every time.
And so, are you allowed to tell us kind of a little bit about what this story would be like? So, you kind of gave us that open world genre, but is there something that you're focusing on for a story genre? Like, will it be like post apocalyptic? Will it be like high fantasy?
Um, it's kind of like it's hard to describe. I'm not sure if you ever touched RuneScape.
I know
Um,
of it. I haven't played it, but I've watched other people play it.
it's sort of like medieval fantasy, but it doesn't take
Cool.
itself like too seriously.
Hmm.
It's not like very dark or it's more like, you can walk up to a guy and the guy would just be like, I like to fish, and then you can follow him around and he's just like fishing the whole day. It's sort of this there's swords and there's magic and there's dragons and stuff, but it's fun. Like the NPCs they're making jokes and it's not there's no like world-ending threat or something. You're just like going around and you're meeting all these people. Um, yeah, it's like fantasy that doesn't take itself way too seriously,
Gotcha.
which is something that like RuneScape does as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You had me at dragons. And I feel like one of
I
the
haven't actually
things.
made a dragon yet, so that's
Oh, come
unconfirmed.
on. No, I'm
But
just kidding. I feel like one of
one
the
day.
things that people are kind of over now too is the whole world-ending threat and having to work together to overcome something that's like it's going to be the end of the world. So I think that's actually really, really cool. And are you going to have different classes?
Right now, the idea is to not have any classes and just let people like make sort of their own hybrids thing. I'm kind of inspired by like Elder Scrolls.
Okay.
Like
Like their talent, almost talent trees, fake talent
yeah,
trees.
where you can just kind of like spec into the sort of stuff you want, and you can make hybrid stuff. So that's currently the idea. And you'll be able to mix stuff, but there's like a limit. You can only equip like a certain amount of skills at the same time. So you can't just become like the ultimate everything, but you can sort of build it the way you want it to.
That's cool. So will you have crafting and gathering as well? You mentioned
Yes.
fishing. And do you know
Yes.
yet how you want to handle that?
It's like it's all supposed to like be sort of small skill, right? So like for example, in a game like GW2, you could go for like this really like end game goal. You could go and craft like a legendary. Um, this game is it's almost more like Minecraft crafting. It's more like, hey, I want to make this, and then you get 6 wood, and you get that, and then you craft it.
Right.
It's again, it's like sort of supposed to not be super overly complicated.
Right. That's cool. So I have kind of a little bit of a different question that might, just to deter us from what the actual gameplay is going to be like. But with doing this all yourself and with also streaming, how do you accomplish that? Like, do you set deadlines for yourself for certain things? Is there an amount of time that you work on it every day? Is it just when you're inspired, or do you have like a set goal in mind each week?
It's this is a really tricky
I
question
know, I'm
because
sorry.
no, I'm happy to answer it. I'm happy to answer it. At first I would do like 2 week sprints, which is something that's pretty common in like small scale indie game developments. So like at the start of 2 weeks, you make a bunch of goals that you want to hit that week. And you try to get through all of them. The stuff you don't make, you move to the next week. It's like sprints, and these sprints are nice because they motivate you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of rigid. And because I am working completely by myself, I don't have anyone else working on this. Like I'm doing everything. So what I found is that for me, it just works the best to just work on whatever I feel like needs working on. So what I try to do is every day I stream a certain amount of hours, then I take a short break, and then the rest of the day I just work on my game. And I'm just like, hey, I'm currently working on this system. Let's work on it more. And it doesn't really feel like work that way. It's more like, hey, I would really like it if this system was done,
Right.
and just work on that system. There's not too much structure behind it, to be honest. It's more like, hey, let's work on my game, and then I find something to work on.
As long as it works for you, I don't think it matters.
It would be nice to have like more strict deadlines and stuff, though. Maybe then I would be working faster. I'm not sure.
And so, do you have a way that works for you with how you prepare and put stuff into the game? Like, do you get an idea, do you write it down first and then figure out how it would work for coding? Or do you just go in there and you're like, I have an idea, and then kind of do a mock-up and then change it then? I'm not exactly sure about the programming side, so I'm not sure how
Right.
that works.
What works well for me is just to have a very iterative process. So I do like when I start off on something like a system I've been working on like the past couple months has been the skill system. So like how you can have skills and you can learn them and you can use them and they have a cooldown and they use mana and stuff. At first I'll come up with like general concepts and I'll just like make some sketches and like what is it gonna look like? What is it gonna do? And then I just start programming. I just start like building that specific thing. And I won't like polish it properly. Like it won't look nice yet. I'm just like trying to figure out whether it feels nice, whether it works well. And very often I'm wrong. Very often I imagine something. I was like, I'm gonna do it this way. And then I build it and I realize like, hey, it would be way better if it's this way. So I'll like make changes and I'll change again, I'll change again. And then when I settle on something I like, I'll go and polish it. So I make sure that I make all the graphics and it looks all nice and it's I add sounds on the UI or whatever. And then very often, like 2 months later, I go back and I do it again. This is
Perfectionist.
like how it works.
Well, it's kind of like your thing. It's like your baby. Like it has to be
Exactly.
just so. Have you ever had something that you scrapped and you were like, I'm completely done with it. This isn't going to work. But then gone back to it and been like, I know I can fit it in now.
Absolutely. That is like just the story that happens to me like every 2 weeks. No, but very often I'll be working on something and then at the end I'll be like, this is just bad. Especially when I'm doing arts. I didn't go to school for like art or anything. I went to school for programming.
Sure.
Art has been something which I've been sort of teaching myself, especially to make this game. And very often I'll draw some pixel art. It's like a 2D pixel art game, right? And it will just look bad. Or I'll think like, oh, it looks horrible, the proportions are completely off, and I'll be super frustrated, and I'll throw it away and I'll start over. Very often it takes me a couple tries, and then, sometimes I go back to something which I tried in the past, and I can make it work. There's also something like, as I'm making this game, I'm getting better at doing these things, right?
Absolutely.
So whereas, like, when I tried to make a certain thing at the start and then I couldn't do it, now I'll go back to that and I'll be like, hey, I got a little better. Now I'm actually able to draw this thing. That's been like, it's been kind of nice because it's just like a nice skill to have when you're doing game dev stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So is anything, I know that you said it was very Zelda, Terraria, Minecraft type based. Are you going to be doing any voiceovers for anything? Are you going to give anything like VA? No, it's all going to be text?
It's all text. And I also
fun.
like that it's all text because like, it's supposed to be sort of dynamic, right? So the whole point is that like, if you do something, let's say you go into a certain dungeon and you kill like the evil wizard or something.
Right.
Then another NPC might have dialogue about that. And he might go like, oh my gosh, Lara killed the evil wizard last week, did you know? I like that as text because I can just generate a lot of stuff.
Right.
Also, it would get really old very quickly if it was just me voice acting everything. There's like there's a zombie that goes like, wow, but there's no proper voice acting.
I think it'd be fantastic. I do get where you're coming from in that instance, though. And then at the same time, I almost feel like when you read something, when it doesn't have a voiceover, that it's almost more immersive because you process it a lot more. Or at least kind of that's how it works for me. Where like, One of my games that I absolutely loved that actually started getting me into gaming was Final Fantasy VII. And I always go back to this, and I always, like, everything just reminds me of it. But the idea that every single thing was dialogue that you had to read, and you took time to read it so it could actually sink in. It was like, oh, okay, so this is what this means. And then you connect it back to something, or at least for me, it's easier to connect it back for lore. So I actually think that's really cool.
I think it definitely depends on the game as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, um, something which I do really, this is actually kind of interesting talking about voice acting. Guild2 recently had a period where there was no voice acting being added into the game. Because of this whole pandemic, they couldn't have these voice actors come into like the studio.
Right.
So they did 2 patches which had 0 voice acting, and then later they went back and they added voice acting to like those stories.
Right.
And it made me realize like Guild2 as a game is really focused on this voice acting. Like the story is really told through this voice acting, and that's this kind of the thing about my game. I'm not really trying to tell a story. I'm sort of just like throwing players into a world and they can mess around and that sort of stuff. But Guild is really trying to tell this story. And you never think about this voice acting until it's gone,
Yeah.
Like, once it was gone, everyone was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this voice acting is actually pretty awesome.
Right.
This is way worse without voice acting.
Right. It should either be one thing or another. You're absolutely right. Especially with Final Fantasy XIV, where there's like barely any voice acting, and then their latest expansion was Shadowbringers, and every single thing was voice acted, and it was just, especially for the English VA, it just kind of blows you away because it brings it to that level. But at the same time, they always swapped back and forth between having it or not having it, so it wasn't completely focused on one. But yeah, absolutely. So do you have and this is another hard-hitting question, do you have a time frame of when you would like it to be finished, for everything to be kind of set in stone for your game? And do you think that you're on par with that, with everything you've been doing?
When I started, I thought I was like gonna have like my first like like sort of feature complete thing in a year. But that has been like a year ago and at this point. So I know streaming this kind of derailed me, to be honest, because before I was just like working on my game like literally like 12 hours a day. And now it's way less because I'm also doing streaming, but I'm feeling much better, So
Right.
I don't think I could have kept doing the 12-hour everyday thing for much longer. I would say that I'm at the stage where most of my systems are done. So like I built like my entire game from scratch pretty much. I didn't use like a game engine like Unity or something.
Okay.
So I had to like do all these systems like, hey, how am I gonna do networking? Hey, how am I gonna like structure my game rules? There's a lot of like very like computer sciencey stuff involved, like lots of programming, which just was very tedious. All that stuff is pretty much done. My game is running, my AI works, my enemies work, you can drop items. It's just about content at this point. So like the game is kind of done in one way, whereas it's fully playable. Just the game world is really small. So a lot of the stuff I've been doing recently is just like making areas, making the world bigger, adding quests, just making sure there's more stuff to play, because right now the game's totally playable, but you're pretty much done with it in like an hour,
Right.
There's not too much to actually go and do. So I'm hoping that like at the end of the year I'll have a lot of stuff and I'll totally be on course to release.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But we'll have to see. Like I'm also just like having a lot of fun streaming.
Yeah. Are you actually looking at, when you do finally start to get ready to release it, having anything like anyone test it, or like alpha testers, and how do I get in on that if you do?
It's tricky because I kind of don't want to do early access. You know how a lot of these games they sort of release when they're not fully done yet.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's early access. I kind of want to make sure people actually have like a full experience when it comes out, and it also makes me like scared to let people test, because I'm like, I want people to really like get sort of hooked on it the first time they play. I want them to go like, whoa, this is cool. I want to play more of this. I don't want them to be like, oh, this is kind of boring. Thanks for having me test,
Aw.
So far I've only had one other person test with me. And I have lots of friends and they're all like, can I test? Can I test? Give me a Steam key. And I'm just like, no, I want the game to be better, and I want you
Aw.
to really enjoy it when it comes out. So I might have some like some larger skill tests as I get closer to it.
Mhm.
But right now I'm mostly just like testing with like one other person and keeping stuff under wraps for the most part.
Right. And you had mentioned that streaming helped break up your 12-hour day of working on everything, which obviously would prevent burnout and getting it so that you're not going to go crazy. Is there anything else that you do other than streaming to kind of like break up that monotony? Is there like do you have a routine that's kind of like, okay, I do this and this, or I eat this and it makes me feel better for, you know?
I like to just go on walks. It's kind of sad because like with this whole like situation that we're in right now, I know there's a lot of stuff I used to like doing. You know, I used to just like go out with friends and do this and do that and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not doing any of that right now, so that makes it easy to feel like you're shut into your house,
Right.
right? So for me, it's important to at least like once every like 2 days get out of the house and I just walk somewhere. And it helps me clear my head a little bit. Very often I'll be like stuck on something for my game, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm not sure I'm gonna program this. And then if I go outside, my head gets like all cleared, and then I come back and then I instantly come up with the solution.
Yeah, fresh air.
Um, would recommend. Fresh air is pretty nice, I recently learned.
And so I know that you want to do everything for your game independently and that you're so excited about it and you've made all of these huge changes, which again is super inspiring. If someone actually came up to you and was like, I have a concept for a game and I have all of this written out, would you ever help with programming for it? If someone was like, hey, I really enjoy your game and I would love to have you program it, would you ever consider it?
It just kind of depends on what I'm doing
Right.
with my life at that point in time. I've done some freelance work before I started working on my game where I was like building apps and stuff for people.
Oh, cool.
Um, I think it's cool to have like someone who's excited about something and then help them make that a reality.
Mhm.
But like for example, right now all my time is like taken up.
Right.
Like a lot of people they're like, "Oh my gosh, Lara, your life is so chill. You don't have to do anything." And I'm just like,
Oh,
I'm working on my game the whole day.
yeah. No, that's,
I've never been this busy, you know. Which is something I didn't expect at first. I was like, "Oh, I'll just chill, work on my game a bit. Oh, I'll just stream." Um, there's not a lot of time left over.
mhm.
So if someone would come to me right now, I'd be like, "Sorry, I don't have time." Um, But you know, working with other people is kind of fun as well.
Right.
Working inside of a team, working on some game that you're all passionate about. So like I had the story about how I worked at a game studio at first, right?
Mhm.
I think I might very well go back to that. Like if this
Right.
game completely fails, maybe it will completely succeed or something. I can totally see myself doing that, but I just had to go and do this first, you know.
Right.
But yes, but it depends on like if I have something else I'm doing in
Right.
a way.
Gotcha. And I've actually kept you for almost an hour. And so I'll probably leave this with, is there anything yet that you haven't done that you're really excited that you already have planned for the future, whether or not it involves stream, Guild Wars 2, or your game that you would want to let people know about so that they can start planning for the event?
Mm, that is a good question. This is. I'm not sure if I should talk. I'm gonna talk about it. It's fine. I have a concept in my head which this might not happen. Okay, nobody get upset at me if this doesn't happen.
Don't quote it.
Um, exactly. Don't add me. But I want to do a game show. This sounds weird,
Ooh,
but I want to do a Guild Wars related game show. I think that could be so fun. And I
it
get
could
like
be.
some people in, and then they have to answer like quiz questions, and they have to like, I don't know, do a beetle race in the game or something, or guess where a screenshot was taken, and then
Mhm.
I do like a big event, like who is the ultimate Guild Wars player, and then they have to do all kinds of stuff.
That would be awesome.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I'll actually do it though. It seems like a lot of work. This I've
Right.
been like writing down ideas for this. Um, Also just something that I'm pretty passionate about is just making sure that how do I even approach this? Um, I am transgender, and I really want other people to feel like safe in this whole guilt rush community. And for me, when I first like came out, I was a content creator before I came out as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was really scared of people like, not accepting me or being like super weird about it and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So when I did come out, people were like really nice and wonderful to me. So that's something I'd like to focus a little bit more on in the future. Just like letting people know that they're, no matter who they are, no matter like, what their gender or sexuality or anything is, like,
Right.
no matter who they are, that they're very welcome in this epic, amazing Guild Wars 2 community.
That is so sweet.
So, oh, I want to do like a video or something about that. Maybe talking about that or something.
That would be absolutely amazing. That's really, I keep saying how inspiring everything is that you're saying, and it's just absolutely amazing. So, wow. And honestly, I didn't even know that. And so just the amount of stuff that you're doing and the amount that you're accomplishing and all of the community things is really cool. And that's why I really was excited to interview you, because I was like, this is really neat. And that's one of the really cool things about Twitch and YouTube, I think, is that regardless of what's going on outside right now with COVID or anything like that, there are a lot of people that, even if they can't put themselves in your shoes, they kind of just, like you said, are really accepting no matter what, because they're like, hey, let's play a game together, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And that's really sweet.
No, but I am also like a big fan of the stuff you're doing right now. I'm really honored to be on the show. Like, you had all these amazing people on, and I was like, wow, I'm invited as well. That's so cool.
Oh, it's amazing.
No,
and honestly, I'm really excited to get more in depth, and I would love to have you back on again, especially when when I do a lot more with lore. If you would ever like to hang out again, I would love to just talk about something that I'm super interested in and just kind of go over it with you, because I think it would be incredible.
Hit me up. I like these games a lot.